Well, hey everyone, welcome back to the Culture Maker channel. Great to have you here, whether I'm catching you on YouTube or on podcast. Thanks for taking the time to listen. Today I interview a really neat guy. It's a great podcast, a guy called Geldard. And Jay runs a charitable trust called E Tū Tāngata. And it's all about changing the way we think about ourselves, actually. It's about the negative talk in our lives and a tall poppy syndrome that we all suffer from. And yeah, so his aim is to really to challenge that and to help us to challenge it. He's got a great book which we can even read to our kids that will help our kids change the story they tell themselves about themselves. Anyway, fantastic interview. Have a listen, and yeah, I'll check back with you later. Hey Jay, it's so good to have you on the podcast, mate. Thanks for making the time.
Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah. Well, in a minute, I'm going to ask you to tell us about E Tū Tāngata, the organisation you've started. But maybe just tell us your story and how that leads into it.
So I grew up in a Christian home. Got two amazing parents. Grew up in Otatahi, Christchurch, and that's always been my home. Numerous times I've tried to get out of the city, but it wasn't to be. I married a beautiful woman from Northland, but we ended up living here. So
right.
Christchurch is my people, my place, and I love it here.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a Christian home and went to an awesome Presbyterian church in Hornby, and still part of that now. And another campus out in Rolleston in Selwyn of Christchurch. Okay. That's about 10 minutes south of Christchurch City, 15 minutes. Got three beautiful kids who are 11, 10, and that's the two boys. And I've got a daughter who's 8. And we live local. We go to church local, and we just love what we're doing at the moment with helping those around us, really.
Yeah. So how'd you get into it? And what is it? What is E Tū Tāngata?
So I worked for an organisation, I still do, called 24/7 Youth Work. I lead that nationwide. So 24/7 Youth Work has youth workers all across the country, from Northland to Southland and all in between. And I've been leading that now for 13 years, and 7 years into my leadership, I took a sabbatical, went over to the UK, and people said to me, you do youth work in New Zealand, tell us about it. And I remember describing the climate that we found ourselves in, the highest suicide rate in the world, double that of most countries in the world, the mental well-being space we're in, just describing the climate. And I sort of... I remember the look in their eyes when they said to me, that doesn't add up. You live on the other side of the world, 3 hours flight from anyone. You've got no Trump, no Brexit, no refugees crossing your border.
Yeah.
Why is it that your young people are killing themselves faster than anyone else?
Yeah.
And I had to sit with that question for 3 months. And I get emotional about it because I'd come too desensitized to it. I hear of, a school in Christchurch had lost 6 young people in 1 year. Wow. And, that's just another young person. And I just had to cope with it by pressing it down and just moving on, because we didn't have time to feel the emotion, because you just collapse under the weight of every 12 hours a young person takes their life. And so, it's just too overwhelming. So I had come a bit desensitized to it. But I had 3 months to sit with this. And I remember just going, whatever we do, we've got to come at this differently, because I remember thinking about the tree, and some trees have branches. Well, all trees have branches, but you've got depression, suicide, self-harm, violence. Like, we're dressing the tree, and my reflection over in the UK was, we've got to actually address the root issue of this.
Yes.
We've got to come at this differently, because there's an elephant in the room that we've named it, we've shamed it, people are leaving the country because of it. We see this devastation of the elephant in the room. We see, the mental destruction of it. Why do we put up with the elephant in the room? And for me, the elephant was this thing called tall poppy syndrome.
Right.
Which summed up as your success in New Zealand, is your success is a threat to mine.
Yeah.
I wish you well, but not too well. And if I ask any Kiwi to rate themselves out of 10, 10 being them amazing, 0 being them average, we all have to think that we're 6 or 7.
Because that's the Kiwi way.
It's a Kiwi way. And publicly, if we were in a room with like 10 other people, 10 other men, and one person goes, oh no, Jay, I'm a 9 or a 10, we get to laugh at them publicly.
Yeah.
Because that person doesn't understand that the culture doesn't allow that to happen. And so that laughter is an example of us cutting that person down to humble them.
Yeah.
And to teach them to think like they are 6 and 7. And the crazy thing is that if a person wants to be a 3 or 4, we give them medication and we help lift them up.
Yeah.
And we get them back to being a 6 or 7. But how dare they think that they are an 8, 9 or 10? And that's why I get emotional about it, because I'm like, it's broken.
Yeah.
This is, why have we all bought into it? And my realization is because the elephant in the room has always been there. It's been a comfort to us as a country. It's helped keep us humble as a nation. We've needed that humility. It's a good thing, right? But it's now become this false humility where me cutting you down does not make me any taller.
Yeah.
But that's what we're all doing, and we all of us are doing it.
Yeah.
And the research talks about the fact that success in New Zealand is when you put yourself down in front of us before we do.
Yeah.
And so we're like, this guy had a good promotion at work, or got a new car or a house, or is doing well in life, but he's putting himself down in front of us. He's one of us. He gets it.
Yeah.
And that's devastating.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hideous, man. And I've seen the stats you're talking about. The single biggest killer of our young mums in New Zealand is suicide.
Yeah.
We have the highest youth suicide rate in the world. And it's not just high by a little bit. It's like double, like the other highest country in the world.
Yeah.
Our stats are atrocious. Anxiety levels, the medication of our youth for anxiety and stuff. It's all off the charts. And so the question we ask ourselves is, well, how can, if our young mums are not happy, how can they raise a happy child?
That's right.
And so what you're talking about resonates with what we do, and you're saying the same thing. That you're saying we all need to believe in ourselves a bit more and talk more positively about ourselves. Is that what is it that you're trying to achieve? Yeah.
So I sat down with Steve Hansen from the All Blacks, and I said, he was, bless him, he was and he was about to go to the World Cup, and I'm sitting down, and he's a good friend, and I was just chatting with him and said, I need the secret herbs and spices to the All Blacks to do this, right? Like, for us to change the culture of New Zealand, I need to surround myself with smarter people in the room. And so I caught up with Steve Hansen, and I've caught up with iwi around New Zealand, and I remember looking. I had about 10 of us in the room, and we had the word E Tū Tāngata on the wall, and E Tū means to stand, Tangata means people, so stand together.
Yeah.
And that came from the heart of the tide lifts all boats.
Right.
So rather than, as a boat, me trying to get ahead by pushing you aside, and look at my boat, it's going forward now. Actually, if we get the water to lift, then all of us lift.
Wow.
Hence, E Tū Tāngata, we all need to stand together rather than push you down to make me taller. That wasn't going to work, because that's what we've been doing. And so we sat with the word E Tū Tāngata, and we thought, if we're going to tackle this, we're going to have to come at this 3 ways. And the bit you noted first, Mike, was it first of all starts with, cool, who are you? Because if I value myself then anyone else around me succeeding is not a threat to me whatsoever because I'm secure in myself. It's only when I'm insecure and I'm doubting my giftings and abilities, then watching those around me do well, I'm threatened by. And so then I passively, aggressively knock them down to make myself feel better.
Wow. I think we all do it. I know I have some very successful people in my world that are friends, and it's so easy just to compare yourself to them, and there's always someone better to compare yourself to, eh?
Yeah. So that was the first way we were going to come at it, is that we needed to look at you have value, and let's have that conversation as New Zealanders. Right. And I didn't think I'd be able to get away with that. I remember sitting with Richard Black, a well-known counsellor, and originally I had it as you are valued. And Richard said to me, no, because there's actually intrinsic value in all of us, and it needs to be you have value, not you are valued.
Right.
And I remember going, I think you're right, but I'm not sure if the country's ready for this. Like, are we allowed to say you have value in New Zealand?
Yeah.
And so I thought, I'll just trust him. He's the expert in this space. I'm gonna go with that. And so we did, and that's been a huge success of the kaupapa, is that people love the fact that we're talking about that you have value. The second way we came at it was actually we need to succeed together. So we need to relearn how to do win-wins. Not in New Zealand we do win-lose or lose-lose. Like I will take you down at the cost of myself as long as you don't win.
Yes.
And we talk about...
We almost prefer lose-lose rather than at least let someone winning, you know?
Yeah, but actually we're stronger together. We're better get together. And so we thought, actually, we need to tell each other or retrain ourselves to do collaboration where when you win, I win. When you lose, I lose. And rather than this low-level trust of cooperation, which is like holding hands, singing Kumbaya.
Yeah.
The third way we came at it is actually saying, yes, you have value. Yes, we succeed together. But the third strand talks about the fact that actually others matter. So that person over there who you don't know, they too are valuable, and they too are a person, and we need to cherish that person even though they're different from us.
Yeah.
And so in 2019, when the mosque attacks happened in my city, Christchurch, the whole nation got behind those families and said, you as humans matter, that's not good enough, and we got behind them. And that was to be applauded, but since then, it hasn't continued.
No.
Since then, racism and lots of things have happened that have only created a really unhealthy place. But if we saw the other person as valuable, we wouldn't speak that into their life, and we wouldn't, So, and that's how we've done it. Is we've come at it 3 different ways. And for some people, it's the you have value conversation, which is the hard hitting, like, do I believe that? Or it's the succeeding together. Yeah, I need to learn how to trust on others and not try and do this alone and try and, and compete. I need to be stronger together. Or it may be for some people, actually, I need to think about others.
Yeah.
And I need to think about myself less and actually realize that those people over there, they matter too. And that's been quite profound as we have the conversation across the country.
Do you feel there's a connection between serving others and helping others and actually us starting to see some of the value in ourselves as well?
Yeah, I think we're wired to pay it forward. We're wired to live in community, to help those around us. I'd say love thy neighbor. Like when you give someone a present, you get joy watching them unwrap that present because you are, often I get a present, I want to give it to them 2 days early, like Christmas. I want to give it to them the night before because for me, it's watching their faces. And so I think we are wired as humans to live in community.
Yeah.
And continue to pay it forward.
No, I agree. I mean, my story, I think, is my journey has definitely been as I've served others and taken that opportunity that I have become more whole myself. But for sure, and in fact, I'm convinced that if I hadn't, I would have still felt as broken as I did, years back. Not that I feel perfect, but I think that it's so countercultural because we're raising society to be individualistic. We raise our kids to focus on themselves and to look after number one, and it actually isn't helping them look after number one. But you're also saying, well, actually, no, we do need to start believing in ourselves. So what is it that a dad or a mum listening to this needs to do for themselves to start to realise the value that they have?
Yeah, they need to start asking the question, what's the voice in their head saying to themselves?
Right.
That voice that's your friend, is it speaking life into you, or is it not being very nice to you? Like I remember hearing John Kerwin say, that voice in your head, would you speak that over your friends' lives?
Yeah.
And going, no, we wouldn't. So why do we allow it to speak negatively over our own lives? So for us to bring change across the country, we have to begin on a personal level with, do you have value?
Yeah.
Do I believe that? Because I know we all believe it for those around us, but honestly, I've realized that as Kiwis, our t-shirt that we sell says valuable, full stop. It's our most number one selling t-shirt across the country, because people go, I want to wear it. I want to wear it, but I'm not ready to wear it. Because I only want to put on that t-shirt when I believe it.
Yeah.
And I have to be okay with people looking at me going, this person thinks they're valuable.
Well,
does that make sense? Like, and so that's why I think for us as men, as dads, we have to look at ourselves and go, what are we speaking in our own lives? Because if you want to be confident as a dad or a man, you got to tell yourself, I'm confident, and then you become confident. Or if you say, I'm going to be brave, you got to act brave before you become brave. And you can't just feel valuable. You got to tell yourself you're valuable, and then you become and believe it.
Because probably that voice for a lot of men is saying that I hate myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had to wrestle with this too, Mike. Yeah. Like this is personal for me, because I failed school. I didn't get high school certificate. Like I remember year 13 at my school, everyone got high school certificate except for one guy, and that was me. And I remember leaving school, not knowing what to do with my life, feeling like an absolute dropkick. And I remember thinking, I'm worthless.
Yeah.
And so I've had to go on this journey. So this is not something that I've just gone, hey, white middle class man,
Yeah, exactly.
got this idea. This is personal for us. And also from my family and my extended family, it's been good for us as a family. It's brought us closer together, because we can speak truth and lift each other up as a family, and using the language.
So how does a man or a mum or a dad go about hearing that voice, trying to just work out, because we're so busy we don't even listen to the voice in our, it's all chaos and mess, and we distract ourselves constantly. What do we do? How do we go about hearing that voice and arresting it or questioning it?
Personally, I think you need to surround yourself with some good people who can, because as their voice has become our friend. That's our conscience. That's until someone else goes, hey, tell me about that, and then helps you process and go, what were you thinking in that time? Like, what were you, what belief system were you speaking over your life? And you say what you're thinking. They're like, oh, okay, that doesn't quite sit right. Like, actually, if we change that language to speak this, then what will that mean? And so for me, I've needed that external person who I can just, process on. It doesn't have to be counseling. It doesn't have to be a supervisor. Just someone who you trust, who you can go, hey, this is what's going on for me, and this is how I'm really feeling. And then as you describe the feelings, the person who hopefully is a few years wiser can go, this is what I'm hearing. Is this correct? What is that voice saying? And then you get to the really bottom of, actually it's saying that I'm not feeling safe, or it's saying that I'm not valuable, But we don't know that until we have that person to question and go reflect back what we're saying. And I've had that, and it's been amazing and freeing. I remember, I'm a CEO of the biggest not-for-profit, with youth workers in schools, and I remember going and seeing my friend and going, I'm dyslexic, and so I'm like, oh, I hate the fact that I can't write a letter. And then my friend goes, oh, so who do you get to write the letter? And I'm like, oh, I get this, one of my colleagues. And okay, so you get the letter written. I'm like, yeah, I do, but I'm not writing it. Other CEOs, they're writing the letters, and they can, I have people help me with emails. And I can't, if I do a post on social media, it's going to be, some word's going to be wrong, and I hate that. But he's like, but the letter gets written, and yes, your name's at the bottom of it, but it's being written. I'm like, yeah, but it's not me. And he said, Jay, it doesn't matter if you wrote it or didn't write it, you got the job done.
Yeah.
And so he said, people look at you and go, wow, look what he's doing, and they don't care that you're writing emails or not.
Yeah.
All they care about is you getting the job done. So that's an example for me of having to process that voice to go, oh, I'm useless because I'm meant to be a CEO and I can't even write an email.
Yeah. Listen, this is interesting. In this series of my podcast, I have had 2 or 3 other interviews which aren't publicly, which you don't know about, and they're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
We need guys in our life that we're talking to. So the fact that you've come back to it is like, wow. And we all struggle with this.
Yeah.
And I've mentioned when someone said this in previous podcasts, I was like, yeah, well, I was fortunate as a younger guy to have some guys ahead of me in the game. In fact, you were around at one of the guys' place the other day, and these guys have significantly spoke life into my life. So the challenge is to find them. The challenge is to go looking for guys, looking for safe people, because it can't just be anybody. They need to be a little bit ahead in the game. I heard you say, they've been on that journey a little bit, and they're actually safe to talk to. They're not going to be people that are gossiping or meaning you harm. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing I've done, Mike, is in my wallet, I've got a list of 4 names, 4 people that are allowed to speak into my life. So, if they hit me up or call me out, like my wife is one of them, then I listen to them. Because what I found is that I had hundreds of people telling me their thoughts and opinions on all sorts of things, and I was taking all their thoughts and opinions on board. And then I realized this is too overwhelming. I was trying to please everyone. And so I realized, actually, I am who I am, warts and all. But actually, there's 4 people now that can speak into my life and call me out and say, mate, that you're out of line there, or you're getting a little bit, you're going a bit wayward, and I listen to them now. And that's been very freeing for me because, as I said, I took on everyone's advice as, I need to change that. I need to change that. Or I need to adapt to be better at that. And then those 4 people now are like, no, just be you. Like, don't try and be what other people think you should be. And that's been quite freeing for me.
Yeah, I think this is really wise, but I think it's such a challenge for guys. I think there'll be I'm thinking of some of the guys at my work, some of the guys that we work with, and I'm thinking, how, do they have people in their world that they can reach out to? It's hard. We're so connected with our devices to garbage, but we struggle to be connected to anything real and meaningful. And that's part of the challenge,
Come on.
Yeah. So there's a challenge, guys, finding some people in your world that you can talk to that are safe, and really just going and looking for that. Jay, what else? Any other thoughts? What other things can us guys be doing better to be looking after our state of mind?
I've got one more suggestion, and this is part of the culture of New Zealand, and you would have heard of this language called a try-hard.
Try-hard,
right. That guy's a try-hard, right? It's part of the journey of tackling tall poppy syndrome in New Zealand. This has come up a lot again around people told me stop being a try-hard.
Yeah.
And I ran into Chris Parker, a comedian, and he really laid it out, and he said, what's wrong with trying hard? Let's just talk about that for a moment. So if I'm flying from Auckland to Sydney on a plane, I want my pilot to have tried hard.
Yeah.
I want them to make sure they've ticked every single box to be the best pilot they can be. If I'm having heart surgery, I want my cardiothoracic surgeon to have tried hard. And so what's wrong with actually trying hard? Because doing the opposite, being flippant or being just, not being the best version of you in your marriage with your kids is actually, I think, is worse.
Yeah.
And so I want to challenge that try hard mentality, to encourage those listening to, can you be the best version of you and try hard on your marriage, try hard with your kids, try hard in your job.
Yeah.
And if someone calls you a try hard, call them out and go, yeah, I am trying hard. I want to be the best version of me I can be. I only get one go at this.
Yeah.
So that would be something I want to encourage men and women in, is that language needs to go, because it's just causing so much harm to it's confusing, because you're trying to be successful but not too successful. You're trying to you grow, but you don't want to grow too much because people are going to call you try hard. So and then we wonder why our mental well-being is the state it is because it's just broken.
Yeah.
Go son, but not too hard. It's just I just think, if anyone listening here, can I encourage you to be a try hard and just try your hardest.
Mate, I should title this episode Try Hards. Yeah, it's perfect. Something I was posting about recently, and I've been interested in your views on this, because as I said, the listeners to this are dads, which means they're leaders, right? And at work, I think the leaders are trying to develop other leaders in their businesses. And often it's so hard to look past the mess of someone else's imperfection and actually call out leadership in that person.
Yeah.
But that actually is the job of the leader, is to sort of, when everyone else is seeing a messy individual, it's just sort of looking past all that and seeing the raw talent and calling out leadership in that man or that woman that's at work. Because if you don't, they're certainly not calling out themselves, because they got all this personal hate speech going on in their head.
Yeah.
And they need someone just to say, hey, I see you, I see that talent, and let's work on it. And if we do that at home as well, I think that, because our kids are coming home from school with all the same internal talking, the role we have in speaking life into our kids and not being afraid to give them a big head, because that's the other thing, right? I think I've seen in your website somewhere is this sort of fear of giving people a big head. If we encourage them, they're just going to get this big bubble head.
Yeah, I talk about the fact that we want to be either a bumblebee or a fly. And what I mean by that is, if you think of it a fly, you think about botanical gardens, rose bushes, beautiful smells, you can see it. The fly will find the poo in the rose garden and will sit on that. You're like, what are you doing? It's got so much beauty around, and you found the grossest thing in the botanical gardens.
Yeah.
But then a bumblebee will always find the rose amongst the junk.
Yeah, wow.
We'll always find, that one, if it was a rubbish tip full of garbage, we'll always find the one rose in that place. And so I encourage all of us to look for the rose in every single person, and don't look for the poo in the lives of people, because, it just doesn't do anyone any good. No. We need to call out greatness out of each other rather than find the poo.
That's so key. So as the CEOs, the leaders, fathers listening, it's about being that bumblebee and flying around in the environments we're in, and looking for the beauty in the chaos that we're looking at. That's powerful, man, and that needs to be a shift for us all, because if sometimes people can't do it for themselves. So we're saying, there's men in your business, there's kids in your home which are unable to stop that negative self-talk, and so someone's got to be the someone who calls out the other stuff.
Yeah, and when you started your company or your business or you got involved, people, your staff are always a priority, but over time, the process starts trumping people. And I think it's really important that we look at our team and go, actually, is process trumping people, or do we put people over process? And again, you've got to have process, don't get me wrong, but I think sometimes in unhappy cultures, it's because the process is dictating what's happening with people, rather than someone's going, hey, what do we need for our people? What needs to happen for them? Yeah.
And then we go home, and life's a little bit messy, a little bit hard. Stuff's going on, stuff's happened. People are feeling a little bit hurt, disrespected, and we walk in the room. I've got a little ebook called Culture Maker, and the basic premise of it is that we walk in the room and we can change the culture, we can change the feel of the room just simply by walking in with our beliefs and our approach and our values and our standards. And what I'm hearing you say is that if we walk in just conscious of being a little bit of a bumblebee, conscious of actually speaking life, we can change the feel of the room probably in an instant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. And so you told me off air, you're stepping down, so 24/7, you're stepping, is that public? Can I say that?
Yeah, you can.
I mean, this won't go to air to actually next year, so you'll probably be well.
You can say that. So I have resigned. So E Tū Tāngata was birthed out of 24/7 youth work.
Yeah.
And the board were being absolutely amazing because they allowed me to be a day a week E Tū Tāngata, 4 days a week leading 24/7.
Yeah.
And then this year, I was 4 days a week E Tū Tāngata,
Yeah.
and then a day a week 24/7. And I was happy to do that. And I said to everyone, hey, if it adds to, I'm here to help. I'm good at doing, leading two charities. But then one of my friends rang me up and said, at what point do you give your life to changing culture? Like William Wilberforce gave his life to abolish slavery. And he said, you are split 80-20. Like, it's great you're trying to, you're trying hard to do that. Yeah. But he said, you need to give your life to this full time. And that was my aha moment where I was like, actually, I love both kaupapas, but I actually have to give my life to this. And so, and it's scary because I'm having to, we're setting up its own charity next year in April. E Tū Tāngata is totally free, so we give everything away.
Yeah.
And we somehow have got to try and survive as a charity, but through the generosity of so many people, we've been able to, continue to, shape the culture of Aotearoa. So that's what's happening. It's exciting for 24/7 because they can appoint a new leader.
Yeah.
And can go forward, and E Tū Tāngata can really have a sharp focus going forward as well.
Yeah, it's a massive challenge, running a charity in New Zealand, trying to fund it, trying to basically put food on the table for you and for the people that you're needing to make it work. I know a little bit about that with their own charity, and man, there's some generous people in New Zealand, and there's some people that do believe in a brighter future. And I know that they believe in what you're doing, and we've got to work together because, man, if you look at the data, it would indicate that a lot of the social work, a lot of these charities that are around New Zealand aren't actually effective because nothing has improved. It's a brutal assessment.
That's right.
It's a brutal assessment, and I'm willing to take critique on it because I can say it safely because I'm potentially part of the problem, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, actually, apart from your very positive message, what do you think we need to be doing as charities and organisations better so that we can have more effect?
For me, I'm all about measuring your outcomes, measuring your outputs, because we're working with Canterbury University, who are using a Harvard University framework to measure the impact of us changing the culture. So we're measuring schools, we're measuring sports clubs, we're measuring, so we have stuff to know that it works, because if you're not brave enough to measure your impact, then why are we funding? Like, why am I putting my own hard-earned cash towards something that may or may not be having an effect? Nice. I'm very aware that I'm very, I've got woo, so I very can convince people, that what I'm doing is amazing, but I actually want to put some robust research around it to say, hey, I know Jay says it's amazing, but actually here's the proof that it's amazing. Yeah. Because the people who are backing us or backing our organization are smart people. They don't. They want to know, is it working? And so within 24/7, we're big on research. With E Tū Tāngata, we're big on research, just because I want to know if it's working or not, and if it's not working, I want to figure out how do we actually sharpen this to be more effective. Because through the research with 24/7, we've got more effective. We've been able to be sharper with the resources that we've had. That doesn't come if you don't want to ask the question. So that'd be my advice.
And would there be, sort of in wrapping up, a couple of thoughts, would there be one thing as you've gone on this personal journey that you're doing different as a dad when you walk home or when you wake up or whatever it is, that you would be happy to share as an idea or a tip for other dads?
Because you're the founder of E Tū Tāngata, you get called out a lot for behaviour, things that are jokes that you thought were funny that weren't.
Yeah.
But my kids call me out now.
Yeah.
My son took a hat trick in cricket. He's 10 years old. And I remember getting in the car. And I said to him, hey, that was awesome, but don't get a big head. I realised, holy moly, this is the tall poppy syndrome coming through. So I just turned to him and said, son, I'm proud of you, but I want to apologise for what I've just spoken over you because that's not right. So my advice to dads is actually listen to the words that you're saying because sometimes the words that we're saying are influenced by our culture and all we're doing is not speaking life into people because we're worried that they're going to get a big head, but the world's going to tell them lots of things that they're not good at, and we as the inner circle need to tell them, you know, how amazing they are. So I've had to change my mindset with this kaupapa, that I've had to re-look at everything I say to myself, to my kids, to my wife, because they go, hey dad, that's not very E Tū Tāngata. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, I apologize, because so in our house now we have language to call out greatness out of each other.
Wow.
And the kids know that if they call me on it, that I'm going to go stop and go check myself and then go, actually, you deserve better. And I just apologize and say, what else can I, I know I try and adjust my game, but really.
Yeah.
So that's been a huge impact on my boys, my daughter, just speaking life and being aware of those words that I'm speaking.
So I think there's something you could develop there around that, giving dads language to call out. You said the wording, I can't quite remember it. Language to call out greatness and those around us. I think we actually need the words. We need some language because we've never been taught it. And going back a step on that, how many dads, I wonder, that are listening to this have never said, son, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
And just found something to call out on the child.
Yeah.
That is just unique about that child. I wonder how many of the men listening have never had their dad tell them, son, I'm proud of you. And so I think dads, we can go home today, probably, and it would be really wise and well and healthy for us to pick one of our kids, at least one, and go, son, daughter, I am proud of you.
Yeah.
And here's why.
Yeah. That's good. And I just think that when the external world gets the best of us and when we get home, they get the worst of us.
Wow.
I've been journeying with a lot of friends who are having marriage problems, and one of my pieces of advice, I'm like, have you told your wife she's beautiful today? Have you given your wife a compliment? Have you... And like, no, I can't. That's so hard. It's awkward now. It's like, awkward's fine. Just start and let it become something that oozes out of you over time, because that you've stopped doing that and speaking that into your wife or your kids. We need to retrain you, even as awkward as it is. We need to retrain you to start saying, you're beautiful, you're amazing, I love you, I want to encourage you, because that will create chemistry in your family. And so check yourself and go, do I speak affirming words into my wife, into my kids' lives? Because I think it's quite hard hitting, that we probably often find out we don't do it enough.
Yeah, we don't. And, there's this thing where we put the kids first. The kids come first. And I say this a lot. If the kids come first, it means mum comes last. Mum and dad come last. And if mum's feeling last, then she's feeling a little bit lost and a bit lonely. And so everything starts to foul. Everything at home starts to foul up. And you can transform it just by coming home and saying, hey, honey, you're beautiful, or you're amazing, I just love how you do this, or, whatever the language is will affect every day. It'll affect her relationship with the kids. it'll just brighten up the room.
Right.
Do that for 3 days, and you probably can transform any kind of foul-feeling environment.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love that. Love the language, and really encourage you to sort of develop that as part of your thing. Encourage men to find some language around this stuff because we need it, and
Yeah. That's good, Mike.
we need to speak it to ourselves, and we need to speak it into those closest to us.
Yeah.
Hey, I really want to thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. Is there any, well, we can just finish here, but is there any one passing thought? You've given heaps. Is there anything, just in finishing of everything we've summed up, that you'd say, hey, Dad, this is what I want to tell you?
There's only one of you. There's only one of you out there, so don't try and be someone else. Just be you, and be the best version of you can be. That's all I've got to finish with. I think we need to understand that better.
Yeah. Awesome, Jay. Really appreciate your time. Love what you're doing, and totally just, man, I'm looking forward to what you're doing, actually transforming our families, transforming our culture, speak life into the culture of New Zealand. We all need to try hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's do it.
Good.
Awesome, man.
Awesome.
Thanks heaps.
Thanks, Mike.